Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to Story Time with NONIE. Today we are going to have chapter 2 in our story called No Darkness at All about Hamid and his little sister Kinza. After Hamid had heard his stepfather say that he was going to sell his little sister Kinza to an old blind beggar, he could not go to sleep. He laid there thinking about how horrible it was to have to leave her there just even one day a week with that old, dirty old man. And he thought, if he has her all the time, he is going to mistreat her. I can't let that happen. What can I do? He lay awake trying to think of what he could do all night long. He finally fell asleep, and it seemed like he hadn't been asleep any time at all when he felt a kick in his side. It was his stepfather. His stepfather said, "Wake up, boy! You're late. You've got to get out and take care of the goats." Hamid jumped up, grabbed a piece of bread and some sweet coffee, and looked at his mother. She didn't look like she had slept much either. He looked at his mother's eyes and saw that she was looking at him very intensely, and she nodded her head. Hamid knew that meant that he was to come and find her as soon as possible. After he had found his friend who could watch his goats, he gave him a little piece of bread to pay him to watch them for him for a little bit. And Hamid went and hid behind some bushes, watching the house. Finally, he saw his mother, with Kinza tied onto her back, go into the barn. And he looked around, and then he crept into the barn. His mother was in there grinding corn. And he said, "Mother, have you found a way for us to save Kinza?" And she was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "Yes, I have. You, Hamid, are going to save Kinza." "Me? How could I save Kinza?" "Well, I'm going to tell you, Hamid, a story. You see, when you were just a tiny little baby, your father and I went on a trip to another village because your father wanted to do some trading in that village. We traveled 20 miles up over the mountain and into another valley. And when we got there, you were sick, Hamid. It was terrible. I tried to bathe you in the little fountain in the street, but all the flies kept coming around you. You were so sick, you had a high fever, and I was so afraid you were going to die. And I prayed to the saints, but you did not get well. And then, as I was holding you in the street, not knowing what to do, a woman came up to me and she said, "Is your baby sick?" And I said, "Yes, he's very sick." And she said, "I know someone who can help. There is an English nurse in the village, and she will be able to give you medicine to help your baby." Well, I told her, "I'm poor. I can't pay for medicine." She said, "No, this woman's here to help people like us. You go there, she will help you." So I quickly took you up and I found that narrow street and I took you inside. And sure enough, there were a lot of other people there, just like us, who were poor. And she was helping them. But while I was waiting to see her, I noticed a picture on the wall. It was a beautiful picture. It was a picture of a man holding little children. One of them was a girl like about Kinza's age. And the man had such love in his eyes. I asked one of the other people about that picture, and they told me that this was a man named Jesus, and he was the reason why this English lady was helping us. was because she loved him. He took care of sick people, healed them when they needed help. He helped them. And that's why she does the same thing. Well, after a while, Hamid, the English lady came and she saw you and she gave you medicine and it made you well. And I have never forgotten that, Hamid. And now you, Hamid, need to carry Kinza back to that same village and find the English nurse. That's how you are going to save Kinza. Oh, Hamid was frightened at this prospect, but he knew there was no other way. And for Kinza, he would do this. So that night, Hamid waited until everyone was asleep except for his mother. He crept out the little hut door as quietly as he could. The dog started to rattle its chain. He went over to their dog and quickly put his face by the dog. It's okay, it's okay. The dog quieted down. It couldn't bark or his father would wake up. And he went out a little further and waited until his mother came. She tied Kinza on his back and had 2 loaves of bread wrapped in a cloth that she tied on his shoulder. She had already told Hamid, you go up over the mountain. When you go into the valley, you follow the river. Maybe you will be able to get a ride in a truck. If not, you're going to have to walk. It was dark. Hamid hated the dark, but he began walking, and he walked, and he walked, and he walked. Kinza was used to being carried by her brother. She wasn't afraid. She just laid her head down on his shoulder. She trusted him, and he walked until he could not walk anymore. And he finally found a cornfield, and he laid down and put Kinza right next to him. And he fell asleep. Well, he slept almost all the way through the whole next day. He had been so tired. When he finally woke up, Kinza was missing. He was so worried. He had not known that she had woken up. She had heard the sound of someone grinding corn just like her mother did. And so she went towards that sound. Hamid hadn't realized how close he was to a farm, to another village. And so this little girl seemed to have come out of the cornfield with stuff in her hair, very dirty, and they picked her up and took her into their home with them. So Hamid saw her, but he knew he couldn't go up to them and ask for her. So he waited until they were asleep, and then he crept in and he picked Kinza up, and he took her away from there as quickly as he could. Hamid decided he had to travel only at night so that he would not be spotted. But sometimes he did have to travel a little bit in the day. They were on the road many days. And one time he had to cross an open area. And as he was in this open area where there were no trees or bushes to hide behind, he saw a couple of soldiers on horses, and they saw him, and they were like, "Hey, that's the missing boy from our village." And they started after him. Well, Hamid started running, and he ran down through some stickery bushes as fast as he could go, and was tripping over roots, but he didn't care. He had to save his little sister. The men were not about to ride their horses down into those stickers. And so they went on and thought, it's not our job to find runaway boys anyhow. And then finally, one day, he entered the village that his mother had told him about. He looked and searched and found the little narrow street. He found the house on that little narrow street where the English woman lived, just like his mother had said. And he knew it was that house because there were other little boys coming out who looked just as dirty and needy as he was. He peeked around the corner inside the door and saw that there was a white woman with white skin. See, Hamid's skin was brown. He saw this woman with white skin, which he had never seen before. And he noticed the same picture on the wall that his mother had described to him. So he took his little sister and went out into the street. She was asleep, and he cuddled her and held her and loved her, knowing that pretty soon he was going to have to leave her. He wasn't sure if he would see her ever again. That, boys and girls, is where we are going to end this chapter. Until next time, thank you for joining me on Storytime with Noni. I love you. Bye-bye.